Hey, this is Overpass Insights. My name is Eric, and I make apps. Now, today I want to talk about how sometimes AI can just be so dumb, but I still think you should use it. Okay, so today is another beautiful day in Birmingham. Every day's like this. This isn't a one-off or anything. It's like the Mediterranean of England. All right, now that's true. We haven't had that many nice days this year, so it's just such a special thing to be able to come sit outside and do the video. Um, anyway, so today I want to talk a little bit about AI again. So a few weeks ago, I did like 3 different videos about AI, talking about how I use it almost every day on my own projects. So it's like something I'm not comfortable using it in client projects yet. Um, it depends on the client project. If the client agrees to it, then yeah, then I would use it. But like if they haven't, then I wouldn't. So, but I will use it on my own projects, right? And I encourage all developers out there to start using it. If you're just using ChatGPT for copy paste, you should start using Agentic AI, start using Claude Code, start using Gemini, Codex, or what have you, and everything like that. So, what I want to do today is go a little bit have a little cognitive dissonance here because one of the things we don't talk about a lot is the downsides of using AI. And I'm not talking about it taking your jobs and everything like that. I'm talking about how much it can suck, how often it is just wrong, right? And it's something that I notice when I see there's so much hyperbole about AI at the moment, and it gets better all the time. When we look at where we were a few years ago and where we are now, I mean, it is getting better, but it is so often so wrong. And if you use it in anger on a day-to-day basis, you know that sometimes, like, dude, what, what the hell are you even thinking? Like, it just goes off and codes something, and you're like, that's not even what I asked you to do. Like, or it just forgets things, or it makes stuff up. So, like, if you had a developer that was really smart and could do a lot of things, but sometimes it just sort of makes stuff up, or just takes what you're doing and said, gotcha, I understand, then it's not that reliable. So it's one of those things where I think everybody should use it, but do not trust it, and never ever assume that it's smarter than you are and that it knows the requirements better than you do, especially if you're the one who told it the requirements. So, and it's one of these things. I see these videos by people saying like, whatever, um, Opus 4.6 changed my life. It's amazing. It's like, dude, it only been out like for like a few hours. So it's like one of these things when you start using it on a day-to-day basis. That's only when you really understand how well it works. I see stuff all the time like I replaced my dev team with OpenClaw or OpenClaw, which or now Hermes Agent. There's all these different stuff, and I've played with those too, right? I think it's one of those things as developers we need when a new technology comes around. I think we need to have a grasp on what it is. I mean, it makes us more valuable professionally. It makes us more valuable personally, and it also just lets us know what comes on in the industry. It's something I've done my entire career, and it's always served me well. I mean, even if that technology sort of evolves and then dies off, it's just being part of that. And I think AI stuff is the same thing. But let's go through some of the stuff that it does for me. So a lot of the times it just completely forgets what it was working on. So you got the context window and everything like that. You got all the memory files. I tried all the QMD. I've tried all the different types of memory files. And sometimes, dude, it just was like, all right, I need you to add a feature to this page. It's like, and it, it will request something that we'd already decided wasn't going to be on there. Like, no, we already said we're not going to do that. Or it will start suggesting things. Or sometimes they say, I'm not familiar with that project. Please give me the background. It's like, dude, you did the project. It's in, check your memory files. Oh yes, it's in my memory files. Okay, yes, my apologies. And it just goes on. And if you use agentic code and everything like that, you could watch the different sub agents argue with each other and then sort of correct each other. So it's one of these things where you can't just rely on it dependently. Uh, I did something recently where I was just sort of making an email outreach like kind of thing, just playing around with everything like that. I had an OpenClaw server. I have an OpenClaw on a old MacBook in my hallway. You might as well run it on there, just see what it's like. And I tell you what, this thing is the dumbest thing ever. I've tried as the engine. I've tried increasing the memory. I've tried different agents. I've tried different ways of storing the memory. We use Telegram. We use I use Slack. I use all this kind of stuff. And on this thing, I've used Grok. I've used Gemini. I've used Claude. I've used Codex. And each and every time, it's just dumb. So to give you an example, I wrote something where I said, okay, let's do a cold email outreach. If you see a company that would be, when you at night, I want you to search the web. If you see a company that would be a good fit for Overpass, write an introduction email, and you'll send it as yourself. You don't pretend to be a person. You don't pretend to be me. Send it as yourself, and then just and then you recommend it. And it's even this thing we're thinking, do you want to check over the emails before they send off? And I'm like, well, maybe for the first few we should. And then like the first few emails come through, and you're like, I'm seeing approve where it sends off, and it was actually pretty good because it researched the company, it wrote the email which was very much tailored to the company, and it was like it was saying like, hi, I'm an AI agent on behalf of Overpass. I'm here to represent Eric Sheridan, and Eric Sheridan's been working in the industry for 25 years, and we would like to set up an introductory call if you're interested. If not, and make sure it's all GDR compliant. And I was really impressed, except for the fact that my name is not Eric Sheridan. And it was like, I don't even know where I got that name, right? And it's in the config. It's like it has all the config. I'm using so many tokens to go in there, but it just made up a name. It didn't use Smith, it didn't use Jones, it uses Eric Sheridan. And those are the kind of things, if you use it in anger, you don't have trust in it as a full-time production system. And when we talk about, I think, like I said, like a lot of these, I see a lot of videos by business owners and like venture capitalists and things like that saying every company needs to have an OpenClaw strategy. This is revolutionizing the way our business works and everything like that. And you use it and you're like, well, first of all, like Tony Robbins is always talking about AI or these other influencers. And you're like, I'm pretty sure he's not actually using this himself, right? But as a developer, you're using it, and as a developer who produces code, and by the way, the difference between code and AI, for those of you who don't see it, I mean, for those of you who are not technical, code is the same every time, right? It's stable, it runs, and AI kind of does its own thing. It can just go random. It can just do other stuff. So it's good for certain things. It's good to build the code if you check the code, but it's not good for that production system, at least not yet anyway. So I wanted to point this stuff out because it's like sometimes, and it's like I want to tell you, like, so when I was doing starting Overpass, I was working with offshore teams. I was like, that was the whole thing, and thinking I could see that outsourcing was becoming this big thing. Everyone was sending their development work over to India or to China. So I was like, I used to be a Chinese linguist, so I thought, let's get involved with this. That will be Overpass does. And so I kind of set myself up in that way. So I worked with a lot of offshore development teams. And sometimes, I would get some good developers there, but sometimes I would get developers who were like, God, awful. I mean, it was just, and at the time, all the hype was, there was a book called The World is Flat by Thomas Friedman. And there was a bunch of others ones talking about how our job as developers is going away because of outsourcing. And that never really happened. I mean, it did to a certain extent where a lot of companies would send software developers overseas, but then they would bring them back in, or they would get somebody like me as a consultant to go in and work with them. And it was, it's kind of one of these things. If you've ever delegated software code to somebody, and it's like especially a junior developer, and they come back with completely the wrong thing, you kind of know what the AI thing is like. You have to check it over. That's the value add we bring into it, right? So that was the thing. It would be like, there was this one developer, I'm not going to say his name, but it was like this kind of thing where I would give him a task and I go, all right, okay, so I'm clear, right? I've written this big document. Do you have any questions? He goes, no, Eric, I got it. I'm like, okay, because if you do have any questions, I want you to ask me. In fact, while you're working on it, you can ask me. And he would and he'd go, no, I got it right. And he would go off and just do the completely wrong thing. And it happened again and again and again. But because I was so invested in the outsourcing thing, I was kind of like, even though I was fixing it at night, I was still kind of like, okay, this is just not a good developer. And sometimes AI can be the same thing. And it reminds me exactly of the same thing. But let's go back to the bit why I think you should learn it, because it the tendency, especially if you code like I code, is you always say, dude, I should have just done this myself. I should have just did it myself. But then the developer doesn't learn, you don't pass it on, and you don't scale. That's the big thing. So when you're competing with a developer who can use AI and can work with it and can produce faster than you can, but maybe not as accurate, but they're fixing everything, then that's what you have to be on the guard for. And that's the thing that scares me, is not in that whole thing they say is you're not going to lose your job to AI, you're going to lose it to somebody who uses AI. I really think that that's true. That's why I'm trying to keep up with everything, and it's changing every single week. A couple weeks ago, I did a video where I used the pencil.ai, I think, or pencil.dev, whatever it is, and it was like, and a couple days later, after I put that video out, like Sketch 2.0 for Google came out, which kind of did a very similar thing. So the longer you wait, the more technology changes, but that's kind of the nature of technology. It's always evolving, and we always keeping on track of it. And when somebody needs the skills, you got to be able to say that, yeah, no, I know how that works, and also to be able to describe why you could do a better job than AI, or why you working with AI can do a better job than just AI. Like I said, it was back, and we're talking like 20 years ago, like nearly 20 years ago, where a bunch of businesses were like, well, why should we hire local developers when we could get like a team overseas and, like dirt cheap, and then they could do it for us. And, but a lot of the times it was like having that close communication, and there was like a lot of difficulties. And a lot of times I would take jobs on for Overpass, although I learned my lesson eventually, which was like, oh, Eric, we got this team overseas to do this project for us, and it's completely wrong. We have so many disconnects in terms of being able to manage them, making sure that just in terms of the requirements, everything like that. By the way, you can get some really good developers overseas. I'm not talking about overseas develop. This is not like a you know like some of the best developers I worked for have been in India, or worked with have been in India. But yeah, by God, but sometimes it's just the you know somebody making pennies. They just got into the industry, everything like that. But people come with me saying, Eric, can you fix this? And you look at it and you go, nah. That's what AI is like right now. It's the thing where you got a lot of business owners, or um, uh, you know, looking at AI, being able to build something quickly and going, oh, well, why do I need them for? Because it just works. And then they have something like Eric Sheridan going out there, or a big security hole in their application, or not actually understanding how it works, or having just totally inefficient code, or something that doesn't even do what they think it's doing in the background. Anyway, I just want to say it. Sometimes, actually, quite a bit, AI just sucks, man. It's just sometimes and this is the problem, is because sometimes you're really impressed and you're really surprised with it. You're like, dude, that was wow, it just generated it like that. And sometimes it's like, dude, it's and it's not. It's like it has all the information. I'm not saying like I'm just giving vague requirements. I'm like, detailed context requirement document, or project request documents, which I've read myself, which I've composed myself, which I make sure everything's listed, and it would just sort of ignore those sections. Anyway, I think the reason I'm having this rant today is I had a particularly difficult this morning. It's a bank holiday Monday, but I was working on some of my own projects, and it was just like that thing where you're just getting frustrated with it. Um, it happens, but I do believe that we have to learn to use it, but don't. It's that thing, you can delegate to it and check it, but do not abdicate to it. Don't assume it knows better than you do. And if you're using it for a language or a program or anything that you're not familiar with, then I mean, you might as well just be giving it to anyone else. You might, if you know how to code, you know how to fix it. You know the language, you know the best way to do it, you know the best practices. AI is, I was gonna say it's not as smart as you, but it's smarter than me. I mean, but it makes stuff up, right? But it does not have the experience. It makes assumptions that I know are not true. It makes assumptions on things that I've tried years ago, and it's one of these things where it's just, every time I think, okay, yeah, let's do that, and then it just gets me back in the end. This is a bit of a rant. Apologies for that. I'm gonna show you guys this this view that I have here. I do really like living out here in Birmingham. I know the last couple of weeks I haven't done a video. I've had some personal stuff going on, but I'm trying to get back into it. Anyway, enough about me. Enough about AI. Let's talk about you. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing well. Put down in the comments some of the dumbest stuff you've seen AI do for you. I mean, because I thought about just having this big long rant about stuff, and it's just, you know, and I'm tempted to. I might actually, because it's like I said, sometimes it would, like 1 minute it will just dazzle you with what it could do, and then the next minute it would just be so, like, seriously, what's that? Anyway, that is it for today. I'll talk to you again. Accept your